Everest is a 2015 biographical survival film directed and produced by Baltasar Kormaker and written by William Nicholson and Simon Beaufoy. It stars an ensemble cast of Jason Clarke, Jake Gyllenhaal, Josh Brolin, John Hawkes, Robin Wright, Michael Kelly, Sam Worthington, Keira Knightley, Martin Henderson, and Emily Watson. Based on the 1996 Mount Everest disaster in which 8 climbers died, it focuses on the survival attempts of 2 expedition groups, one led by Rob Hall, Clarke, and the other by Scott Fisher, Gyllenhaal. Kormaker, Universal Pictures, Walden Media, Cross Creek Pictures, and Working Title Films dedicated the film to the late British actress Natasha Richardson. The film opened the 72nd Venice International Film Festival on September 2, 2015, and was released theatrically on September 18, 2015. It was first released in IMAX 3D on September 11, 2015, in the UK and in IMAX 3D, RealD 3D, and 2D internationally, and exclusively in IMAX 3D, September 19, 2015 as a limited release in the United States and Canada and along 36 other countries. It began a wide release in the United States on September 25. The film was a commercial success, grossing $203 million worldwide against a $55 million budget and received positive reviews from critics.
Plot.
In May 1996, several commercial expeditions at the base camp of Mount Everest prepare to climb to the summit. Rob Hall, who popularized commercial Everest missions, leads adventure consultants. Scott Fisher is the chief guide for its rival, Mountain Madness. Rob's clients include Beck Weathers, an experienced climber, Doug Hansen, a former mailman pursuing his dream, climbing veteran Yasuko Namba, who hopes to complete her final 7 summits ascent, and Outside Magazine journalist John Krakauer. Helen Wilton manages Rob's base camp. A month earlier in New Zealand, Rob says goodbye to his pregnant wife Jan, promising he will be home for the birth. At the base camp, Rob receives a fax from her, informing him that their unborn baby is a girl. He wants to name her Sarah, but she disagrees. Worried about climbers overcrowding, Rob persuades Scott to cooperate to reduce delays. On the summit attempt, Rob's group departs from Camp 4 before dawn, planning to complete the ascent and begin descending by 2 p.m., the latest safe time to ensure return before nightfall. The group is delayed by over an hour after discovering that guide ropes are not installed on the upper reaches of the climb. Beck has eyesight problems and stops. Rob tells him to return to base camp if his condition does not improve in a half hour. Scott hurries down to camp to help another climber, but plans to reascend, and Rob warns him about overexertion. Rob reaches the summit on time and is joined by other climbers including Yasuko, who jubilantly plants her Japanese flag. Descending, Rob encounters Doug struggling to ascend just above the Hillary step and orders him to descend. Doug insists on continuing, saying that he will not get the chance again. Rob reluctantly agrees, and they reach the summit 2 hours later, well past the safe return time. Doug is exhausted and suffering from altitude sickness. With them is Scott, exhausted and ill from high-altitude pulmonary edema. As Rob helps Doug descend, a blizzard strikes while Doug's oxygen tank is empty, causing him to suffer hypoxia. No extra bottles are stored on the route as Rob asked, and he radios Helen to send more oxygen. Doug, left briefly by Rob, semi-consciously detaches himself from the guide rope and walks unsteadily along the narrow path, then silently topples to his death. Scott's condition worsens. He tells his fellow climbers to continue descending without him. He lies down and later dies. Descending climbers reach Beck, whose vision remains impaired, but they all become lost as the blizzard obliterates the trail. 3 climbers go for help, leaving Beck and Yasuko. Guide Andy, Harold. Harris reaches Rob with spare oxygen, but the cylinder aperture is frozen shut. They huddle together in the storm. While Rob sleeps, Andy begins to have hallucinations. He then strips off his outer clothing and slides to his death. In the morning, Rob radios Helen that Doug and Andy are gone and that his extremities are frozen. Helen calls Jan, hoping that Rob will respond to her voice. Jan tells him that he must start moving. Rob tells her that he is cold but otherwise comfortable and asks her to name their baby Sarah, dying soon afterward. Returning climbers tell the camp that Beck and Yasuko are stranded. The weather, however, makes a rescue impossible. Helen calls Beck's wife Peach, informing her of the situation. In the morning, Beck miraculously awakens, sees that Yasuko is dead, and stumbles down to camp alone, severely frostbitten and in need of medical help. Peach calls the American embassy and organizes a helicopter rescue. Nepal Army pilot Lieutenant Colonel Madan Khatri Chetri flies a high-altitude mission to take Beck to the hospital. Meanwhile, one of Scott's guides, Anatoly Bukreev, finds his body and moves it off the trail. Returning home, Helen has an emotional reunion with Jan, who later gives birth and names her daughter Sarah. Beck returns to his family, heavily bandaged. Closing titles reveal that he eventually lost both hands and nose to frostbite, and that Rob's body remains on Everest.
Cast:
Jason Clarke as Rob Hall, a New Zealand expedition group leader. 4. Josh Brolin as Beck Weathers, an American doctor and amateur mountain climber. 4. John Hawkes as Doug Hansen, a mailman and amateur mountain climber. 4. Robin Wright as Peach Weathers, Beck's wife. 5. Emily Watson as Helen Wilton, the base camp manager. 6. Michael Kelly as John Krakauer, a journalist and amateur mountain climber. 6. Sam Worthington as Guy Cotter, a professional guide. 5. Keira Knightley as Jan Arnold, Hall's pregnant wife. Martin Henderson as Andy Harold Harris, a professional guide. 6. Elizabeth Debicki as Dr. Caroline McKenzie, the base camp physician. Ingvar Sigurdsson as Anatoly Bukreev, a professional with Scott's team. Jake Gyllenhaal as Scott Fisher, an American expedition group leader. 4. Thomas M. Wright as Michael Groom, an Australian mountain climber. 6. Mark Derwin as Lou Kasich, a mountain climber on Hall's team. Justin Salinger as Ian Woodall, a British mountain climber who has climbed Mount Everest several times. Naoko Mori as Yasuko Namba, an experienced amateur mountain climber. Clive Standen as Ed Viesters 7. Amy Schindler as Charlotte Fox. Vanessa Kirby as Sandy Hill. Tom Goodman-Hill as Neil Beidelman, a professional guide on Fisher's team. Charlotte Boving as Lena Gamelgard, a successful Danish climber in Fisher's group. Micah Hopman as David Breschers, a documentary filmmaker and mountaineer. 8. Chris Riley as Clef Schoening, a mountain climber on Fisher's team. Chaik Chan as Mukalu Gao, the leader of the Taiwanese expedition. Vijaya Lama as Lieutenant Colonel Madan Khatri Chetri, a Nepalese army helicopter pilot. Mia Goth as Meg Weathers, Beck's daughter. Pemba Sherpa as Lopsang, Sherpa guide for Fisher's team. Ong Phula Sherpa as Ong Dorje, Sherpa guide for Hall's team. Production. Development. Baltasar Kormaker directed the film, which was scripted by Simon Beaufoy and Mark Medoff. 9. With early script adaptations carried out by Justin Isbell and William Nicholson. The film was produced by Working Title Films. 10. Universal Pictures distributed the film in the United States.